Alright, so hopefully you watched previous videos. They try to prep for this. We're going to be looking at this hex file here. But basically we're just going to be looking in the hex file, hex and editor. We're going to be looking in the hex editor, I guess, at a file, and we're going to be recognizing patterns. And so what I was trying to explain is just trying to understand some basic data types and then understand the basic requirements of a 3D model. And hopefully that gave you some idea. Unfortunately, a lot of this is going to be through muscle memory. You're going to have to try a few easy formats so you can comprehend uh, the type of patterns that you need to be looking for. It's one thing for me to tell you need to be looking for that or this, but when you're doing this in the wild, things are not as controlled as that, and you're going to be stuck. Okay, and I find that dealing with people that are ambitious and want to get models, um, typically they won't go after a format that's already been done, and that will be easy for them. But what they'll do is they'll find the most difficult game, which is encrypted, and it's a AAA title made by thousands of programmers, and they're scratching their head why they can't understand the binary in it. And it's just like, yeah, good luck. I couldn't even tackle something that large. So it's really important that you work small. So one of the biggest resources is the Zintax form. You can find any format on there. Somebody's probably posted a sample, and then somebody underneath that has probably posted an interpretation of that format. And then you can just download the binary, download somebody else's interpretation, and then just compare it in a hex editor and see if you can understand what they saw. And that's just a starting point you have to start with. And nobody likes to do it because it takes time and it's boring and it does not get you a model and it's something that somebody's already done. But the thing is, if you're trying to learn, that's the only way you can learn. Okay, so even just recently, I had downloaded a script from Crocs on Zintax. It was the Vertefied of 5 Mac script that he wrote in 2010, and I read the binary, and I wrote my own script from scratch there, and it was already done, but it was a good exercise. So yeah, so I did it. So that's some of the things you have to consider doing. Okay. All right, so this is gonna be really structured, but I'm just gonna walk you through the format here. Okay. So this is the binary format we're gonna be working on. I think this is very simple, very suitable to work on. So we be working on it. I think this is like I think it's like a mobile game or something. It was posted on ZenHacks. Actually, maybe it was no. It was given to me by that normality dude. Yeah. But there's also a post on ZenHacks. I'll probably dump this here or there or whatever. But it's a simple format. I really like it. Alright, so we have a bunch of stuff in here, which is really complex, which I haven't even tried to decipher. So that's a thing. Sometimes you're just too lazy, or it's just too annoying to decipher stuff. Because what you have to basically do is once you identify something, it might be like way, way somewhere in the middle of the file, and then you have to figure out how to get there programmatically. So to do something programmatically, you have to be able to write it out in steps and be like, oh, okay, I have to travel down 50, and then I have to skip 40, and then now I'm here. And then it has to be repeatable. So yeah, that's how programmatic things work, and it's hard sometimes. Okay, so we can see here we would take notes about this format. So you would just open a notepad. I always have a notepad open. I should have a blank one probably. There we go. Use a blank one. I also use this, but I'm only using this because of the video making. Normally I have 2 monitors, so I have no need for this. This is just a thing called desk pins. It's going to hold this notepad in the front while I'm working in the hex editor here. Okay, but if you're doing it at home, you're just gonna flip between screens using your tab key or something. Okay, you don't need desk pins. But anyway, in here, by the way, the desk pins is free, but it has it's adware, so be careful if you try to download it. Okay, so we got in here we have some patterns here, so I can see that there's an identifier at the top here. So an identifier is something that describes the file. Usually it's a 4 character code, and it usually reflects the extension. So for example, here it says XGSM, and the extension is XGM. Weird. Another example here is PNG, which, wait, do I have a PNG? I got a bitmap. I don't have any PNGs here. Come on. Here we go, PNG. Pop that in there. So this is a texture format, right? PNG, and you can see here at the top it says PNG, surprise. So I don't know who came up with this kind of idealism, but it's nice to have in the files. Some files don't have them, but they have a 4-character code which describes the extension of the file. So if you didn't have a file name and the file name was lost, then you'd still be able to recognize the file. This is so important on so many levels, but not all files will have them. But yeah, so we can see here we have an identifier at the top here, and this could be used to identify the file itself, which is fantastic. Now, if you're doing something else, like you're trying to extract this from, I don't know, a ROM or like your memory or something, this is really easy to do a signature check to find your file to identify the contents, because in the memory you won't have a file table there that's easy to see, and you'll just have a lump of data. So this is really great for finding things. But anyway, so we can see this is the file ID, so I would just say, you know, 08 file ID or something like that. Okay, and it's 4 bytes or something. Okay, something like that. Okay, I usually don't write it that structured. Usually I just I usually use shorthands, so I usually just go I usually go in groups of 4 bytes, and I usually just call that a long. So I would just go like this. I would just say unknown, unknown, file type, unknown, and then I would say jump. And I want to come down here, so I got what? That's F6. Okay, that's a string. And what else I got down here? So don't know what this stuff is. Bunch of stuff down here. I want to jump to down here somewhere, and so I want to write this down here, 270, and stuff like that. Okay, it's just to slop ideas down, and then I would open up another file, and then I'd have to compare this, right? So I'm saying, okay, there's a bunch of unknowns, and I got file type here. Yeah, okay. Jump to 56. Okay, so I'm gonna use Control G. Jump 56. Oops. That was 5. 56, which that doesn't make any sense. Oh, that was F7 or F6. Oops. F6. Yeah, same thing. Anyway, yeah. So just follow this through, and then I would compare them with 2 file samples. So you have to make sure it's repeatable. So I usually I won't compare them constantly, but I'll work a little bit in here, get some notes, and then I'll switch to a second file, and then I'll compare the notes, because it needs to be repeatable, and that's really important. So I usually use a mixture of a larger file and a smaller file. So where's the size in this thing? Yeah, you're kidding me. So you select this, it should show me the length. Down here, let's switch this into decimal. So this is 15 kilobytes, and this one is 458 bytes. So this one's a really small file. This one's, I think that's like the largest file that I had in that sample that Normality sent me. But yeah, this is one of the larger ones that I had. So I usually work from a small file and then work from a large file, and I cross-reference my findings with them, and just to make sure that I understand everything. Okay, so let's just see here. So I'm not going to try to decipher the header unless I have to, and a header is just basically the stuff at the top which typically explains how the file works down below, because you usually have instructions at the top and then you have resources at the bottom, typically, not always. But so yeah, so probably there's a bunch of instructions up here, such as there's really only two different types of things you're looking for. There's either going to be a count, so that's how many items there are in a listing item below, or the position or location or address of that resource. So down here we have a resource, and it's important for me to understand where the resource is located. So I would be looking for a value somewhere in here. So here we can see I have a value that says 2D64. Let's see. No, that doesn't mean anything. No, it doesn't mean anything. 64. I don't know, but we might have found an address somewhere that just points down to the bottom. Okay. I think for myself, when I first wrote the script for normality, I'll also post the other scripts up that I sent him, because I was trying to force teaching him the programming stuff, but he wasn't into it. But I made him a script for like I think for Gnosis and Cinema 4D. I can't remember. I'll post those up. We're not going to be working with those, but I have those scripts. I'll post those as well with this. Okay. So let's just work at this. So we have this area here. It looks really choppy, but I also can see that there's repeating patterns in it. So I can see that this loops over here, and it loops again over here. So I can drag from here to here, and I can measure the distance. So I can switch this in the decimal, and it says 49. So I can see that my buffer is 49 wide. So that means if I switch this into 49, it might have actually not been 49. Maybe it's 50. Maybe it's 48. There we go, 48. So it's actually 48. Okay. And so we can see that for every 48 bytes, we have a new entry. New entry, new entry, new entry, new entry. So most likely this is the vertex entry. The vertex or the vertex data can contain X, Y, Z position, but it can also contain other stuff such as surface normals. Damn, that train's loud. UVs, weights, colors. So usually there's a lot of vertex data, so this can get pretty large, right? So it's not as clean as you would want it to be, but usually in the beginning of the buffer, the first three things that are there are going to be your X, Y, Z, followed by the other stuff. So it's not so bad. So we can see here we have a buffer. If I look on the text side here, and it goes all the way down, and then we hit a different type of pattern. This pattern here, you can see it kind of goes into a gradient of these dots, and then goes into the alphabet, and then goes into some weird ASCII. This is typical of a draw list for polygons or for faces, because they'll start from 0 and then increment up. So you can see here this says 2, 1, 0, 3, 4, 3, 0, 3, 4, and it just keeps incrementing, right? So let's just bring this paint up here. So we have a triangle, for example, and it's going to have vertices on it, and they might be in an order like this, all right? So when you have them being defined, they can start anywhere. So it might go from here first, and so it might define it like this: 3, 2, 1. Okay. And then it also deals with winding. So we're winding this way. So we're going 3, then 2, then 1 to create our surface, right? So sometimes the windings will go backwards. So they'll go counterclockwise. And you'll also see that as well, this kind of oscillation of points. So when you define this one, yeah, it might be like something like 1, 3. There would be like a 4 up here or something. I don't know. Let's not go into that stuff. But anyway, so yeah, so we have an index list here, and we can see that it's, you know, incremental. So this could potentially be the face data. Okay. Now this makes it really simple because we only have 4 structures here: a header, a vertex buffer, okay, an index buffer, and then some stuff at the bottom, which I have no idea. So this could be at the bottom, just pulling this out of my ass right now, probably texture data, because I can see names, you know, TGA something, glossy, wireframe, whatever. So probably related to the material data, so it's probably a list of textures for the material, just a guess. I don't know. But I'm not going to be getting into that. We're just going to be focusing on how to read the vertices and the faces. Very straightforward. So, so we can identify these patterns, no problem. So we just need to know how to get there, but I'm going to probably not get into that because I don't want to spend too much time deciphering the format. But if I remember how this worked, there's a count. So here's a count, and then down below you have all this data based on the count. Okay, so I'll show you how I would have determined that when I first did it. So I can see here the numbers start to count. So I can see here I have a 1, or a 0 and a 1. So I know that this is where the buffer stops, right at this F1. Okay, so I'm going to follow this up. So I'm looking at my column. So I need to start at the 44. So I'm going to go up until my buffer stops. And so I can see that this is where the buffer should start, at 44. And this is where there's a pattern break. So it says FFF, whatever, whatever. So I know that somewhere before here, I'm going to have information describing this area that I've highlighted in blue. So that now that I have this highlighted, I can look at the bottom and I can see that it says the length is 11232. So I would obviously write that down. 11323. Ooh, backwards. 232. Okay. And then I would look for relating information to this. So I know that this entry size is 48, so I might do some math here. Bring up my calculator and divide this. I typed that in wrong. Divide this by 48. 48, wow. And so I have number of is 234. So these are all potential numbers that I could be looking for, but of course in hexadecimal, so I would convert them into hex. Alright, so that I could find them better. And you can just look at it in the hex header. So anywhere above here, we're looking for those either two numbers. So I'm either looking for a 2E0 or an EA. So I didn't have to look that far because I can see it right here. But let's look, just go across. Nothing, 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 no. So this is it here. So I can just spot that out just because I've been working with hex for so long. But yeah, so we can see the numbers are printed backwards, right? Because of the endian. So it looks backwards. So it's going 0, 0, 0, 0, and then it goes 2B, E0, and that's what we have here. Alright, and so I can see that's exactly what we need. So that's the buffer size. Okay, we still need the count, but we can derive the count from the buffer by using the known vertex entry size. So our entry size is 48, so we would take the buffer size, divide it, and then we would get the entry count. And that is how many vertices are in this buffer. Okay, and we do the same thing, of course, for the face data. I'm going to find where this begins, where it ends. And this might be a little bit difficult, but it looks like around maybe here it stops, in or around about. I'm not too sure. So we just take the rough size here. My calculator. Oh, it's over here. which is behind the window here. Okay, so I have 2, 3, 5, 3. And I'm going to copy that into here. Now there's two ways this can be stored. A raw size, which based on the vertices that we found, it's going to be a raw size, but it could also be divided by 2 or divided by 3. So those are two other potential numbers we're looking for. So you would take this divided by 2, that's one number that you would be looking for, or divide it by divide by 2 and then divide by 3, and you would have something like that. So these are other potential numbers you would be looking for, 392 or 1176. Ignore the fraction. All right, so those are potential other numbers. But I know based off of what I've seen up here that I'm going to be looking for the raw buffer size. So I have a 9 in decimals, 2353. So I'm going to be looking in hexadecimal for something like 930 or 931 or something like that. So go back up here. And okay, so this is from up here up. And it's usually right next to the vertex count. So let me just see. So 2B. Whoa, I can't even see where the last number was. I should have wrote that down. Crap. Alright, so we got here. So we got, there's another side of the window, my bad. Okay, so we got, here we go. So we got, no, that's not it, is it? So this is, what is this? Yeah, that's the right one here. And then that is, yeah, that's the right one. Yeah, so these two here. So this is our vertex buffer size, and then this is our face buffer size. So I'll just write down these positions before I freaking forget. So we got, just gonna write this down on my notepad. So vert buffer address and face buffer address. Okay, and so what is that? That's 1D8 and 1DC. Okay. Now I remember when I looked at this format, my samples were all the same. So if you go to the same position in this other file, which is smaller, and we go to sorry, I've been using go to this entire time. If you go to search and go to, which is Control G, this is a common thing, which is to go to, I'm going to stop using the word go to because this sounds so dumb. Go to. This is just going to leap or jump to an address and put your cursor at that address. We're going to type in what we found, which is 1D8, and hit OK. This is from the beginning of the file down. Okay, and so we are here, which doesn't seem right at all. So let me just check. This is in, let's put this in also at the 16 mark. Alright, so that in 16. So that's where this one is. And that's where this one is, which is probably true. This file is really small. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. If I remember, I tested this before when I did this a couple weeks ago. This always stayed in the same spot, so we're okay. Okay, so right now we've just established a few things. These two numbers are going to help us read this information, and this is probably the vertices. Well, they are because I've already imported this a couple weeks ago. But yeah, these are the vertices and these are the faces, so we know that 100% for sure. But when you're testing things out, you never know when you're just guessing things, so you always have to test and visualize them. So in the next video, we're going to write a program to help us visualize. I'll be writing it in C++ because it's a higher language and it's more technical, and it's going to be more difficult, but that's a good thing, because if you can do that, then you can work in anything, Python, whatever. But we'll also have to talk about APIs and stuff like that separately, because those are kind of a different animal. Okay, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.